Welcome to Fireside Gaming. We're going on a nostalgia-filled journey that takes us back to the original Nintendo Entertainment System, but not really. Okay, so you've seen the title of the video. We're checking out Super Mario All-Stars for the Super Nintendo, except not. I'm actually looking at the Wii release of Super Mario All-Stars, which is a port of the Super Nintendo game of the same name, which is itself a remastered collection of the first 4 Super Mario Bros. Games that came out on the original NES. And you might be wondering, Billum, why not just review each of the games as separate videos? Why not check out the original Nintendo releases instead? Let me explain. Growing up back in the 90s, my family did have an original NES. So original, in fact, that we had to shove a second game down into the cartridge slot to make it work as the spring was broken. And I spent a lot of time during my youth playing Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3 with my 2 older sisters. The eldest, Kathy, is almost 10 years older than me, while the other, Beth, is a couple of years older than I am. And I'm not telling you this without reason. One thing I vividly remember is Beth and I having to keep on our toes anytime it was Kathy's turn to play. She had a real habit of getting mad when she died. It always started with simple frustrations like grunts or sighs, but quickly escalated to angry shouting, before eventually turning to violence as she would punch me or my sister in the arm or leg when she died. It even got to a point where Beth and I would chant, "Cover your ears, close your eyes, and stay away from Kathy." In hindsight, the chanting might have just been making her angrier, and may not have been the best way for my other sister and I to ensure survival beyond our childhoods. But we're still alive, and the story gets brought up enough to irk Kathy to this day, so I'd say all those punches were worth it. Outside of sharing a fun memory, maybe even one of my earliest, I told this story to let you know that I've never played the original release of Super Mario Bros. 2. It wasn't until my family got an SNES that I got a chance to play that game, and our copy was specifically the version that included Super Mario World, but I will save that game for another time. And there's something I have to note about this. Once we got our hands on Super Mario All-Stars, we never went back to the original releases. Part of that was due to our dad giving away our NES without asking, but even before that, the quality of life features that Super Mario All-Stars brings to the games made us stick with it. The most important of these is the ability to save while playing. That's not something you can do in the original releases, and it really sucks having to play through any of the first 3 Mario games in a single sitting. With that said, I do understand that modern re-releases do let you make save states, but I also can't deny enjoying the updated sprite art I found in the All-Stars versions of these games too. I'll stress that the originals are in no way ugly, but my personal preference is for 16-bit sprites instead of 8-bit ones. The same goes for the music of each game getting an upgrade while still retaining that same classic feel. And this is coming from someone that clocked unknown hours in NES Mario 1 and 3 before I even stepped foot on a school bus. With all of that said, let's dive into the games that kicked off my love of platformers, even if I didn't know what those were at the time. These are the games that everyone knows, whether through personal experience or secondhand. But have they aged well enough to go back and play again today? Let's find out. Super Mario Bros. Isn't a game that's out to wow players with its story. Instead, it's a simple concept that acts as a backdrop of the game. The Mushroom Kingdom has been taken over by Bowser, King of the Koopa. It's up to Mario, or Luigi, to make their way past Bowser's goons and rescue her. And they're going to do that with a lot of running to the right and jumping. That's really the core controls that players are going to need to know for this first adventure. You can walk left or right with the directional pad, but moving to the right causes the screen to progress forward and it won't move back to the left. Holding down the B button lets the brothers run, and pressing the A button makes them jump. Also, you jump higher by holding the A button down longer. Outside of this, there are a couple of things for players to keep an eye on. That includes magic mushrooms that make Mario or Luigi grow in size, fire flowers that let them shoot fireballs, as well as the Starman, which will turn them invincible, so long as they don't find their way into a pit. While players normally die in one hit, having the magic mushroom or fire flower allows them to take one extra hit before death. Looking back at it, Super Mario Bros. Is still a fun game to sit down and play to this day. It's got a nice wide variety of levels that offer their own unique challenges to the player. I won't deny that the game's a bit more floaty than I remember it being, but still perfectly playable. Playing it for this review is actually the first time I've done so since I was a kid. I kinda built it up in my mind to be this really hard game, but it's not. Some of the later levels do require a little extra patience, but they're not near as rough as I remember them being. Unless they have a Hammer Brothers in them, then screw those guys, those levels suck. Now let's talk about Super Mario Bros. 2. which I'm sure plenty of you know by now is a reskin of the Japan exclusive game called Doki Doki Panic. Wait, so what's the real Super Mario Bros. 2 then? Well, it did get a US release through the Super Mario All-Stars collection, and it goes by the name The Lost Levels. Personally, I'm not a fan of this game. It's more of the original Super Mario Bros., but with increased difficulty and some strangeness. Like bloopers flying in normal levels instead of being limited to underwater ones. However, it was the first game to introduce the concept of Mario and Luigi playing differently. Mario continues to play like he did in the first game, while Luigi can jump higher but has less traction. If you really want more Mario, it's here, but I also think it's perfectly reasonable to skip the lost levels. And that actually brings us to the Super Mario Bros. 2 that I know. Story-wise, this game mixes it up by having players take on the evil frog Wart, who's this weird guy that shows up in a few other Nintendo games, specifically those involving dreams. I don't think who he is or why he lives in dreams is ever fleshed out all that much, but it's something that sticks out to me as interesting. When it comes to gameplay, Super Mario Bros. 2 has some major changes over its predecessor. That includes the ability to play as 4 characters: Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. Each of them has their own unique benefits and even gained some of their notable features from later games here. That includes Peach having the ability to float for a short period of time, which we see in later Mario games as well as in the Super Smash Bros. Series. It's kind of funny that Nintendo kept this characteristic considering it comes from a game that wasn't even originally meant to be Mario themed. Another major change is level exploration. Unlike Mario 1, Mario 2 allows players to freely explore levels left or right. There's loads of secrets to discover as well as new platforming abilities, such as holding down to power up a high jump. All of these changes make this one of my favorite Mario games to play as it has a fair amount of variety, such as finding and carrying keys to doors while being chased by these creepy mask guys. However, I will note that some of these levels do go on a little too long for my taste. It also sucks that losing all of your lives in a later level of the world, say 3-3, sends the player back to 3-1. To be fair, that's how the first Mario game works as well, but its levels aren't as long, so it doesn't feel as punishing there as it does in this game. Moving to our final game of the video, we have Super Mario Bros. 3. This is the Mario game that brought many major changes to the series and was a major influence on Super Mario World, which is a fan favorite. You've got the magic leaf that enables flight, the Tanuki suit, this freaking cool cloud world where you get to jump in giant Goomba shoes and use them to travel over munchies and spikes. We always called these socks when we were kids. I can't say why, but I'm just throwing that out there. And if we're talking story, Mario 3 continues the kidnapped Princess Toadstool trend. But this time, the stakes feel a lot bigger. That's probably due to the airships at the end of every world, kings under curses that you have to change back to their original forms, as well as battling the Koopalings. Also, the final world just oozes fear with its massive armies players have to get past, as well as that hand that will drag players down into levels at random. There's just something about the tone and scale of this game that makes it feel more serious than others, at least to me. As far as answering the question of is this game still worth playing, the easiest answer to that is yes. In fact, there's merit in checking out each of the Mario games on the Super Mario All-Stars collection, except for Lost Levels. But if there's one game that's worth playing more than any of the others, it's Mario 3. I actually did a 100% run this time because I never have before, and it was an incredibly fun experience. If you never have, consider giving it a try the next time you want to play the game. It's a completely different experience compared to just blasting past entire worlds with the warp whistles, and being able to save your progress makes it much more doable than in the NES version. Also, if you've ever wondered if the Wii Super Mario All-Stars collection is worth picking up, it's really not necessary. The soundtrack that it comes with is a little lackluster, and the art book isn't anything too in-depth or insightful. I also got a CD of Mario Galaxy tracks since I pre-ordered mine from GameStop back in the day, but that's not a normal part of the package. Instead, I'd focus more on playing these games for cheap rather than picking up some limited collection. Thanks for stopping by for my review of Super Mario All-Stars on the Nintendo Wii, and as always, take it easy.